2023 was a record-breaking year for Las Vegas. A Formula One race, the $2.3 billion entertainment venue, the Sphere, the 67-story, $3.7 billion Fontainebleau Resort, a sold-out Adele residency, the list goes on. And on February 11th, 2024, Las Vegas will host the biggest sporting event of the year, Super Bowl 58.
Las Vegas.
All right, everybody, we've got CNBC, which it's a network which I have been very, very critical of throughout my YouTube channel over the last several years. And what they're really not telling you is that a lot of these people who are coming in, they're overspending on their credit cards, that they're increasingly catering to the top 10%. Now think about it. A lot of middle-class people cannot visit there anymore like they used to because they have been jacking up their prices. They have been essentially nickel and diming like crazy. And you have CNBC, which the way I see it has been giving a lot of half-truths. Keep in mind. Especially you look at their track record on their financial analysis, their media, their so-called pundits they bring in, all these con men ranging from Peter Schiff, Jim Rogers. When you look at all these people with miserable track records like Mark Faber, these are the people who pump gold, keep talking about dollar collapse like a broken clock, or just people who really have a lot of other miserable forecasts, whether you look at Jim Cramer. It's an absolute sham and disaster. And yet we're supposed to believe a lot of the things that's coming out of this network, CNBC. Think about how so many people were slaughtered in the dot-com bubble bursting and in the late 2000s financial crisis, which, by the way, I don't believe this video is going to really talk about that, considering the fact that Las Vegas was one of the hardest hit in the country, in addition to the fact that this media can also be responsible for a lot of people missing out in the bull run in the stock market that we've seen in the last 10 or so years after the financial crisis. Is this media ever going to talk about the truth, whether the lockdowns were as effective, or whether the shots that we were supposed to take from Pfizer, were they as safe as effective? You guys tell me about these things. What is the track record of this media? Because for many years, I've been exposing people like Peter Schiff, along with a whole list of other issues. And not to mention, when I expose a lot of other people like Jacob Orth, who gives a lot of half-truths, who doesn't seem to like me because I confront a lot of these dirty people out there, what do? They block me.
Vegas has changed. I think the country has changed. And I think that is all reflected in the big event that's coming here.
They're seeing it more than just the Strip.
And a lot of the changes have not all been that great. Think about it. If you do polls, and I did polls on my YouTube channel, asking people when were times better in Las Vegas, they'll tell you the 1990s, the 1960s. A lot of people are not happy about what's going on. Now, this isn't to say that all the changes were horrible, but again, a lot of the things that got worse wasn't all that necessary to begin with.
Now they're seeing it as a place that is great for everything else.
38.8 million visitors.
Are people safe? Think about that.
Spent a record-breaking $44.9 billion in 2020.
38 million people. Now think about that. How much difference is that from 2007? That's very sluggish growth compared to the same period 16 years prior to 2007. The visitation growth from 1989 to 2007 was a lot faster than 2007 until now. I think a lot of that has to do because they've been gouging a lot of prices, in addition to the fact that folks have less disposable income.
22, a 24.7% increase from the previous record set in 2019. 2023 spending remains to be reported, but is expected to
Did everybody recover their jobs from 2019? You tell me.
beat out the previous year because of the city's new entertainment offerings. Total visitor numbers for the year climbed to 40.8 million. But as investors pour billions into making Sin City an elite destination, some real challenges lay ahead. Real estate prices have increased by more than 40% since pre-pandemic levels.
A city that has no water availability cannot grow.
Now, first of all, there's a lot of misleading information about that. The water situation is largely because of other states. If you guys don't know that 2% or something like 4% of the water actually goes to the state of Nevada. A lot of that goes to California and Arizona. And in the last 10 or so years, California has been taking a larger share of that water. And we'll see they'll continue to do so because, according to a lot of the recent rains, their water concerns has been coming down a lot. So that's exactly what's going on. So just because water levels are falling and the area is growing, that doesn't mean that it's really the population growth that's mainly to blame. And speaking of all the changes, think about it. Have all these changes all been that great? You know, we saw dirty elements, corrupt elements of Wall Street and the deep state take over the casinos. A lot of them did after the 1980s. And again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have changed, because otherwise we would have been a lot like Atlantic City and Reno. But if you look at how many of the services, not all, are overpriced, you look at the corruption, especially in the political machine, you look at the poor urban planning, you look at just the disaster in housing in terms of quality, in terms of the construction defects, the cookie cutter environment, the real estate boom and bust cycles, the illegal aliens, the vast demographic change. Las Vegas saw the largest demographic change, more than any metro since 1990, 2 years before I was born. Do you think all of that has been all that great? Not really. But a lot of these issues, CNBC is not going to talk about it. Because for one thing, they don't want to put their advertisers, whoever, in jeopardy. But they're also pumping the corrective narrative. In other words, the PC culture, which we're going to be talking about a lot later.
The nature of Las Vegas is very unusual in terms of how it's a tiny island of privately held land in a vast ocean of federal land.
Yeah, why is that the case? Why isn't anybody fighting against this? The population increased by 18%. That's very pathetic compared to the decades prior, the 1990s and 2000s. Housing construction was greater in those periods than they are now. Think about that. At least that's the last time I've ever checked. You have to ask yourself, with these rising housing prices, why isn't construction catching up? Well, for one thing, the federally owned land plays a role. And another thing is the fact that you have less competition among builders. And you also have shortages of other factors, labor, lumber, and the list goes on. Although we have new technologies, including Boxable, that's really changing the game. When you look at Las Vegas, which was the fastest growing metro in the 90s and 2000s, and you see that it's no longer the case, it's lagging compared to Idaho, Utah, Arizona, and Texas, you have to ask yourself, why are people considering moving there and not to Nevada? Considering the fact that we don't have a state income tax, it's because there's a lot of issues with Las Vegas. And these are really suppressing growth. First of all, a lot of businesses don't want to move here for reasons that this video is going to talk about and for reasons that I'm going to tell you, which is the transit service is lagging and, of course, the schools are not performing as well. So a lot of this, in a way, you should not be too pleased about this.
That's considerable when compared to an area like Los Angeles County, whose population actually decreased in the same period.
Las Vegas's growth and development have been not just remarkable, but exponential.
Not really exponential. Not as much as it used to be. Anyway, the fact that these areas are growing is not really because people want to really live in these areas, but because their choices are limited. Other parts of the country, and actually all over the world, I'm sure that the crisis of the border is impacting our population number. And again, that makes them look good. It increases the GDP numbers. And of course, there's other causes behind this. It makes them feel like, ooh, yeah, they're going in the right direction. That they shouldn't really change course. But in reality, when you compare to other states that they are booming, it's kind of disappointing. Really, when you think about it, if we didn't have the proximity to California, and if we didn't have the zero income tax, the state would have been a lot like New Mexico. Very low ranking in many categories, comparable demographics, the list goes on. Problems with drugs and crime, a lot of other issues. Although the crime problem, the poverty problem is worse in New Mexico. And it's pretty saddening considering New Mexico has a better climate than most states across the country.
Tourists flocked as the city diversified its revenue streams beyond gambling.
And that was Steve Wynn that opened the Mirage.
And so did blue-collar workers.
With the expansion of buildings comes an expansion in the number of people. At one time, there was an estimate that...
And a lot of that was immigration. A lot of it was immigration. The immigration population surged from 100,000 to 600,000, 1990 to 2020. And a lot of that was illegals, including their children. Keep in mind.
Every new hotel room created 4 to 5 jobs.
With its hundreds of casinos and nightclubs, Las Vegas has long been linked with debauchery and fun, offering everything from A-list DJs and singers to comedians, magicians, and even a modern circus. But over the past...
And I will give them credit. A lot of those shows are pretty good, and I don't think some of them are overpriced. I think they're worth the visit. And frankly, that's one of the few places I would do in the Strip. Pretty much. But again, you can see here they're promoting the sports entertainment. And really the issue with sports is that it really encouraged the hotel operators to nickel and dime. It was, in my opinion, what's it called? The Golden Knights, the T-Mobile Arena, as well as the other event venues that started the paid parking. And I think that the rideshare companies did play a role. So this has been one of the unintended consequences of this promotion of sports. Not to mention we live in a society where we're so obsessed with sports and celebrities, we don't have a lot of attention to other factors that can really, really make a difference. So let's just go on into, all the money that they spend. This guy, by the way,
it is an opportunity,
is Steve Hill, and I see him every other meeting at the Las Vegas Convention and Business Authority. He was the one that pumped F1, which of course really disappointed a lot of people. And again, I'm not trying to bash Las Vegas. There's a lot of good things I like about it. But once again, these powerful individuals, these folks who get a lot of interviews, the media networks, they're giving you a lot of half-truths.
For Hebaj, the decision to move is marked by a lot of pros, like a shorter commute.
I'm able to
Agreed.
take her to school every morning.
Very
get
little
home
rush hour
sometimes before
traffic.
she's asleep. So I'll see her both morning and night.
A lower cost of living is another one. The Las Vegas metro area topped real estate company Redfin's list as the most popular destination for relocating homebuyers in 2023.
Wow. And the thing that really concerns me the most is Honolulu, because you're going to see a lot of people who bring their voting habits into Las Vegas. It's not California, it's actually from Hawaii. And of course, that helps with the demographic change.
The median home price for the area is $424,000, which is attractive when comparing that.
Actually, this house they put here looks much nicer than most homes you see out here in Las Vegas. They didn't have this large garage sticking in the front.
Of Los Angeles, where most new residents are coming from, or New York.
And here's the funny thing. The home prices in Las Vegas are actually falling. I mean, I think this was $460,000.
Where Hebaj moved from. The average home in Miami, Florida, which is often compared with this city, sells for $150,000.
Again, this is kind of misleading because incomes tend to be lower. In addition to the fact that workers, in comparison, in those other places have more protections. You are less likely to get fired for bogus reasons. Also, this doesn't look into car insurance rates. Now, Las Vegas and Florida has no state income taxes. Nevada has among the lowest taxes in the country. But nevertheless, what places like New York City and Chicago have in terms of advantages is that they have much lower transportation costs. And that can add up to well over $1,000 if you want to own your vehicle versus if you want to rely on a subway system or something similar to get around, which Las Vegas doesn't have, and it's one of the reasons why it's struggling to diversify its economy. Worst of all, what this video is not telling you is that there's a pretty good chance, like we saw about 15 years ago, that Vegas home prices are going to crash at larger percentages than New York and Los Angeles. Although it's, again, very hard to say, but I'm not surprised if this actually happens. So it sounds like they're pumping real estate just like Jacob's life in Vegas.
There's more than in Las Vegas. Job opportunities are another pro. While Las Vegas's unemployment rate is above the national average, it's at a pre-pandemic low.
Well, first of all, the unemployment rate doesn't tell you everything. What about labor force participation rate? What about underemployment rate? There was a time where the poverty rate and the unemployment rate was better than the national average. And that was pre-financial crisis. That was in the 90s. What happened? A lot of things have gotten worse. They're not telling you the whole story, folks. And what about the jobs available? Are they stable? Are the benefits and pay are really good? A lot of people don't want to join the workforce because it's a crap show out there with supervisors and everything.
In 2023, it was one of the top metro areas with the greatest positive changes in employment for the year.
Well, a lot of it is because they undid shutdowns.
Proximity to national parks and a national hub like Los Angeles adds another appeal. But the state's tax laws are one of the
Brightline train's going to help too, which I don't think they're going to be talking about this.
its biggest draws. Nevada lacks a state income tax, does not tax its businesses, and the property taxes it does require are low.
Las Vegas is a low operating cost. When you
Yeah, it's a good point, but unfortunately, despite that Democrats have a lot of power, the taxes are actually pretty regressive when you think about it. Because this tells you the Democrats are not so much in, helping the average person, especially in Nevada. It has the lowest gaming taxes in the nation. This shows who really has all the power. And this shows you, obviously, the corrupt machine of the state. Sales taxes are even higher than what I was paying when I was living in Laguna Niguel, California. Think about that.
look at your net income, every piece of overhead expense is a big deal. So Las Vegas just wins again.
But I will say it doesn't have corporate income tax, so that's good if I'm a stock market investor.
It's most states.
Las Vegas is the leading destination for California businesses looking to relocate, with over 2,000 moving to Sin City between 1990 and 2019. Hollywood studios have flirted with the idea of moving there as well.
Yeah, with tax credits, and not to mention, well, why are a lot of those companies still that are leaving California, why are they going to Utah, Arizona, Texas, and not Nevada? You have to ask yourself that. It's very disappointing.
The existing Nevada film tax credit is worth $15 million per year. On top of that, many tech companies are expanding their reach in Las Vegas, like Google, who doubled its initial $600 million investment in a data center by adding another $600 million in
So there's some good progress.
2020.
I think that Las Vegas is changing in the sense that if you are looking for a well-paying high-tech job, we're having more of them. This is the center of the world for gaming and tourism. There are a lot of opportunities in that industry that include tech jobs.
Las Vegas has become globally renowned as a top shopping destination, from luxury shops to centers and outlets, but not without some major work.
Nordstrom wouldn't look at moving to a city until we got to 750,000.
If you really ask me, the malls outside of the Strip are pretty dead. And it's really sad, to be honest with you, because I go to other states and it's actually more busy. So let's take a look at this. Had an effect on the home prices in the 2000s, which later burst. And of course, they didn't fix the problem. The Reids, the Enzines of the world, all these politicians after the financial crisis, they did not solve the problem. Oh wait, let's focus on identity politics. Forget about the fact that we don't want to fix the financial system. We don't want to break up Wall Street, audit the Federal Reserve so that we don't have another boom and bust real estate cycle in Las Vegas. All the interventions we're doing, all the dirty campaign funds we're doing, we should just focus on identity politics, because now we have all these folks, especially immigrants, who are coming in that are going to be part of our political machine. And the result of this is that the scene is a mess, and now that they just talked about local government, well, you can see why they're able to do this, because this is the only metro area in the U.S. where one county easily runs the show. And guess what? They can centrally control everything. One sheriff, one school district. This is one of the reasons why the schools are such a mess. And there's a limited supply of charter schools, as you can see. So everything is centrally controlled. Makes certain neighborhoods less desirable because now there's less local community control. But when are people going to realize and wake and smell the coffee about all this? So we have this system so certain strip operators don't have to pay a lot in taxes.
City limits. It's split between the unincorporated towns of Paradise and Winchester.
Las Vegas has its city limits that stop at the beginning of the Strip, Sahara Avenue. Casino operators intentionally were outside the city. They didn't want to deal with city taxes and fees. Technically, when you're on the Strip, you are literally in Paradise Township.
Excluding the Strip, Las Vegas has sprawled development outwards rather than upwards, eating up the limited public land.
The result is that land is very expensive here.
Yeah, and what's being done to stop this? When are people going to fight back and realize that this is one of the reasons why they're paying more for housing costs? See, the problem is the people don't have balls and intuition. This is the really sad part. Well, hey, now we've got a football stadium to distract you. Yeah. And one of the reasons it spreads out, and of course the media doesn't want to tell you this, is that you have codes, you have regulations that encourage that type of development. In addition, a lot of the spread out development is caused by growing income disparity, as well as, and YouTube is probably going to cancel me for this, for racial diversity. And when you have neighborhoods that are being taken over by a certain ethnic or racial group, you get a lot of white flight. It's very simple. You see all this immigration, and hey, you guys saw the video with the courthouse that the judge was nearly attacked. You saw the video with the retired cop on a bicycle. You saw that the teen was beaten down after school. This is what's causing all the spread out development. And this is one of the reasons why you get gated neighborhoods. And people tend to want to isolate themselves in their cars. See, with all of these things that's such a taboo to talk about, we're never able to solve these problems. This is the really, really sad part. And you can see, they're talking about a construction boom, which, by the way, a lot of the work is being done by non-citizens. It's sad that, we can't even train our own people to do this. And they're talking about, oh yeah, Vegas is spread out. fastest warming cities, and I've talked about this. We have parking minimums, which paves a lot of the cities with empty parking lots. It's an absolute disaster. And they talk about, oh yeah, we got to solve urban sprawl, which, they're not telling you what's causing it. This is not really the free market when you think about it. Because really, here's the thing. Las Vegas, the urban area, is the 5th densest in America. The homes are really close together. So it's not that it's really spread out, it's the issue, it's the way it's laid out. And here they talk about the dependency on tourism. And folks, all you have to believe is that the lockdowns, remember, they were pushed by these dirt politicians and these casino executives, along with the unions, were pushing it, and they were profiting from it. And they could care less all the businesses and all these other things that they were doing. I was talking about this. This is the former CEO, Jim Murren. He says, we change laws. Where is these media outlets talking about this? Oh, wait, CNBC actually interviewed Jim Murren many times. And remember, he was the guy who endorsed Hillary Clinton, and he was one of the main contributors, MGM, to Joe Biden. So if you're wondering why you're getting all these corrupt politicians, folks, it's not just elections that matter. It's that the whole structure, even in the private sector, has got to change. Okay? If you're wondering, their service is going downhill. Why we're seeing all these horror stories with hotel security. I did a video recently about the Venetian, and even how they're not doing much about bums and safety, but they're blocking people from filming fights. Remember that. By the way, this guy, Network in Vegas, he took down a lot of his posts. So it's a good thing I still have them. We're going to have to hold these people accountable. And it's important for you to spread my information, my ideas, the projects that I want to build. Because if you don't, and these problems keep getting worse, well then, I guess you have yourself to blame why things are such a nightmare. And look at, you see right here, they talk about, oh yeah, the per pupil funding for public schools. Like as if that more money is going to solve the problem. Give me a break, folks. We raised so many taxes, we introduced new ones. Is it getting better? No, it's getting worse. It's a freak show, okay? They're talking about, yeah, we're going to sue to prevent the A's from replacing the Tropicana. Mayor Goodman is speaking against it. Actually, she spoke against the lockdowns, in case if you guys don't remember. But anyway, we know that the lack of funds is not the problem with schooling. We know these administrators get a lot of money, okay? The problem is how they teach and who is using these schools. That's what they're not talking about. And also the fact that when you have a lot of jobs that really don't require much of an education, well, it's likely your children aren't going to do very well either. So these are the things you've got to keep in mind. Plus, by the way, just because a school is high performing doesn't mean it's a good school. These are kind of the things that people just don't really understand. They don't really pick up, unfortunately. As you know, a lot of these people are looking very optimistic about Vegas' future, and I can tell you something, folks. I don't want to sound like a jerk, but I think Vegas needs to have their you-know-what handed to them. They're going to have to suffer. They're going to have to realize that they've made a lot of mistakes. They've done a lot of things that were really, really harsh. And if they get an economic nightmare, then they're finally going to realize that they're going to have to change course. So it's very, very important that you get the word out there and you really, really make a difference. By the way, this guy right here, who I've responded to, I'm looking to interview him. We'll see if these people actually interview. Because, look, folks, you guys don't like the fact the way I talk to people, some of you, but we can't just agree with everybody with everything that they have to point out. Otherwise, we can't solve problems. The truth is harsh, but it's the pill that we have to swallow to finally recover. And I did a video about a lot of the issues with the new homes in Las Vegas. Actually, they were among the most watched videos that I have on my channel. You can see all these defects. You can see the frustration where a lot of homeowners had to go to hotels for short term. Just look at how bland and repetitive, cookie cutter these homes are. And then this is really what we used to build. So you're asking people to move away from other cities that have more charm. And by the way, these are all the same floor plan. Homes that stand out better, and instead get this, which pretty much is in a useless gated area, a pushy HOA. And of course, you can see here, I've done a lot of protests against it. Not to mention, I have a lot of solutions to remedy the problem.